back in 2014, postpartum anxiety, depression wasn't talked about at all. I didn't know I had it. I didn't know what it was. I just didn't feel like myself. If I'd had people that I looked up to or I followed posting about it, I think I would have felt a lot calmer within myself.
Welcome to The Slowdown, your time to define success and growth for yourself with a little inspiration from others. We're back in Brazen Studios and my guest Olivia Rubin joined me from her home in London. Olivia is a celebrated British fashion designer and we talk about her decision to scale back her collections and be more involved in her business. Her choice to share the process of that slowing down with her audience and what dressing like a rainbow means for her. I'm excited to share this with you. Thank you so much for being here. We are ready to finally start. I'm going to read out a bit of a bio that I have on you just to give our listeners and viewers a bit of context. Olivia Rubin is a celebrated British fashion designer known for her vibrant, joyful designs characterized by bold colors, playful prints, and feminine silhouettes. A graduate of Central St. Martin's in 2006, her final collection was chosen for the prestigious press show and won immediate attention. Olivia also worked with Alexander McQueen, Dior, and John Galliano in Paris before fully reviving her own brand in 2018. By 2019, the brand started to wholesale to worldwide stockists, and pop-ups in Selfridges and Saks New York followed. By 2021, Olivia had her own standalone pop-up store in Marylebone High Street, was presenting at London Fashion Week, had a kids collection, and a collaboration with Elemis and sofa.com. Her signature rainbow patterns and commitment to creating inclusive, size-diverse collections made her a favorite among celebrities and fashion enthusiasts alike. Let's just say she grew very fast. I have heard of Olivia since 2008, when my agency would have sent me to castings for her, and was drawn back to her earlier this year because of a series of posts she had done on her Instagram, sharing openly about her recent and unusual commercial decision to slow down in an industry consumed by speed. I'm looking forward to diving deeper into that, and I'm so honored to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much, Olivia, for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
How and where were you raised, and what was little Olivia like, and what was she taught that success was?
I am a London girl through and through, so I grew up in West London, which is still where I live today, and I'd say I had a really happy childhood with lots of fond memories. I grew up alongside my parents and my brother, and my grandfather was a strong influence on me because he was a painter. So I remember quite vividly having weekends painting next to him. I was quite artistic from a young age, so I would always watch the clothes show every weekend with my parents. I would buy Vogue on a regular basis, even though I was still at school. It's what I used to spend my pocket money on. And I think that set the stage for me to get into fashion and pursue a career in the creative industry.
What was the work that you did prior to starting your own brand?
I did work experience from a very young age. I mean, the industry was very different back then. I feel like you had to do a lot of unpaid internships to build up your CV. So as soon as I heard that, even before I started Central St. Martin's at A-level, I remember asking one of my mum's friends who was friendly with a couturier in London whether I could just do a few weeks during my summer school holidays. And that was really every time I had a school holiday or a time free, I would make sure that I had an internship or a work experience booked in so that I was just not only building up my CV, but getting as much experience as possible within the industry amongst different creatives from, as I said, a couturier to a bigger brand to high fashion like McQueen, so that I knew which direction I would want to go in for my future. And I really cherish a lot of those moments for making me the designer and being able to build up a fashion brand.
I did a lot of work experience growing up And if nothing else, it served as a very good reminder for me to know the things I didn't want to do. It was great to try my hand at lots of different things, even if it meant, okay, that gets crossed off my list of stuff. But you then went to work, as you said, at some of these very big named brands. Are there any kind of key learnings, maybe 2 or 3, that you remember really stuck with you?
Definitely. I think certainly the longer placements and the longer times that I spent at McQueen and at John Galliano, learning how different bigger high fashion brands can work internally. I felt at McQueen that very isolated. I wasn't happy. I think it was probably one of my most stressful times within fashion. And I don't know if it's because of the dynamics within the company or whether it's more his style is very fraught and emotional, and that didn't connect with me or my style. Whereas on the flip side at Galliano, who at that time was really theatrical, creative, colorful, I felt a real connection with them, with the team and with his designs, to the point where I ended up designing a hat for one of his finales on the catwalk, which was a really proud moment for me to have something on a Parisian catwalk, something that I'd created and I'd designed. I knew also if I ever set up my brand, how I wanted it to work. I didn't want it to be this stressful, anxious environment to work in. I wanted it to be like a happy place to go to work, to want to work, not to feel the opposite, which is how I felt. Let alone the long hours. Back then, I think, as you said, I think working unpaid as an intern was a normal thing to happen. So I was working up until midnight, 1 a.m.s, 2 a.m.s without even being paid, which I think also contributed to just feeling quite low.
Yes, we can 100% resonate with that. I also want to notice something in your bio. You graduated in 2006, had all these experiences, started doing your own shows and gaining interest. And then what happened?
After graduating, I then worked for other brands for about 2 to 3 years. So I was specializing in freelancing, my print designs, textiles. I did work at a brand for over a year. And then I set up almost a wholesale style business where I was making collections, but I didn't have my own website. So I was selling directly wholesale. And it was prior to Instagram launching. So after having that for about 3 to 4 years, I then felt pregnant and also felt burnt out because I'd never taken a break after graduating, and my course was 4 years plus all the working that I was doing with brands in between those periods. So I kind of felt burnt out, and I felt like I needed a break and to reassess what I wanted to do further down the line. So it was about a 2-year break that I had with my first daughter.
Thank you for filling me in. I then know a little bit better about the rundown of the timeline since 2018, because I've seen it a few times on your Instagram where you show this dizzying rise, being stocked at Selfridges, having your own store, and then a very specific point at which you made the decision to grow the brand your way. When and why did that shift happen for you?
That was quite recent, actually. That was at the end of last year. So after the summer holidays, and I think it was after following another business trip to New York, bearing in mind that I was traveling to New York and Paris at least 3 to 4 times a year, not including factory visits to the Far East and UK-based suppliers. It was a lot of travel and a lot of full-on work 24/7. And I think I just grew to a point where the economy was starting to suffer. I could see that my wholesale partners, their orders were beginning to diminish. I felt personally like a lack of like enthusiasm for fashion at that point, and almost to the point where I didn't want to continue anymore. And I was like, I've spent 6-7 years on this brand. I don't want to give it up, but I feel like changes need to be made for my personal, like, mental health well-being, as well as like a business fashion perspective. I could see we were spending a lot of time and effort producing like 4 collections for women's wear a year, 2 collections for kids wear, each of about 30 to 40 pieces each. And it was just being wasted. Lots of samples were being made, orders were being made and then put into sale by wholesale partners. And I just thought, I don't want to continue this way. I felt a lack of love for what I was doing, and I could just see the ramifications of not being a responsible fashion designer. So I thought about what I could do. I made a literal list of things that I loved about having the brand, and a list of things that weren't working for me personally and for the brand. So I decided, you know what, I'm not going to be doing these seasonal collections, because it was in effect just succumbing to what the fashion industry was asking, and they're just asking for more and more and more, even though you could see from an economical and a sustainability perspective that it wasn't maintainable having these big collections and going into sales. So I wanted to make a change, and I decided to not do seasonal collections anymore, just to slow down on both levels. And it's been met with such positive feedback, and I feel so much happier that I can focus my creativity in a slower way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I always find that fashion and sustainability seem to be an oxymoron, especially in the way that capitalism wants you to be a fashion designer, which, as you said, is to make more and more and more. One of the things that you mentioned in your post was in 2022, you'd come back from New York and went straight to an event, and you felt again like you were missing out on time with your 2 daughters. Is it possible to balance work and life and be a present mum?
I think it is possible, because I did it for about 5 years with an amazing support system, like husband, mum, parents around. So it is possible, but I think it has to be done in the right way, and done in a way that me or whoever it is personally feels like they're fulfilling their professional life as well as their personal life, and not having to pick between one or the other. And I felt like at that point in 2022, my feelings were like changing towards my business. I'm not sure if it was to do with the economy and slowly trickling in this idea of not having to buy so much, buying vintage, buying secondhand, buying less. I'm not sure if it was the two combined, but I did feel like I was just running in a hamster wheel, like coming back from one trip, going to another. I wasn't present enough. And when I was present, I had other things on my mind, such as work, such as this event, such as emails, and not being fully present with my daughters and really enjoying the time that I had with them.
Yeah, it's headspace, isn't it? You're preoccupied with so many other things. So I keep quoting these posts because I just love them so much. In another one of them, you wrote, "Bigger does not mean better for everybody." Why was bigger not better for you?
When I unintentionally started the brand back in 2017/18, I got taken on by a sales agent who very quickly built up the brand from 0 stockists to like 50 to 100 worldwide. So at that point, to me, growth was really important, just to get the word out about the brand and like grow the community on socials and online and in person. And I think by middle of last year, I felt like I'd achieved a lot of that. Like it wasn't a priority for me anymore. So I just felt like that's not what the brand stands for. It stands for kind of positivity, inclusivity, being more responsible. So I did feel like a change was coming. And for me, I realized that at that point in the brand and in my life, bigger isn't better. I kept on comparing myself to, other contemporary fashion labels who were growing like tens of thousands of followers every day, that were then, they'd bring out one collection and 3 weeks later it would be on markdown, and they'd bring another collection. And that was very off-putting to me, not only as a brand, a business owner, but as an individual. I didn't like to see so much newness and then it being put in markdown. It was almost like, what was the point of producing it in the first place? It lost its emotional connection to me. And for me, my clothes do have that emotional connection. So I focused on what was important, which was like maintaining my community, not worrying about growth of followers. Like I built up all of that. I have a loyal customer, I have a loyal follower, and if I do get more along the way, that's great, but I want them to be able to connect to me knowing that I'm not being irresponsible with my fashion choices and my business choices.
Yeah, I think the capitalist system thrives off of a feeling of never enoughness and a comparison that it does, where it pits you against others. And there are times when it's very hard to drown out other people's opinions, to compare yourself, as you said, to other brands. What do you say to yourself to reassure yourself when you have these feelings of, oh, maybe I should be doing more, or maybe what I'm doing isn't good enough?
So I have tried to limit my time on social media, because I feel that you can't help but compare yourself and feel inadequate a lot of the time by going on there. I started like painting again, more so because I love painting, and I didn't used to have the time or make the time for it, but joining an art class and being creative without relying on socials has definitely helped me. I think a lot of the time in life you do end up comparing yourself to other people, but I've just tried to maintain what I believe in and what I feel like the route is going forward.
Yeah, I love that you said make the time, not have the time, because I think people forget that we have a lot of time. It's just how we choose to prioritize it and what we choose to do with it. And you do have the time. You have to make the time to do the things that you prefer. And I love that you're switching social with some real life painting. You also wrote, which I loved, smaller, slower, happier, time to celebrate the small wins and create without restraint. What does celebrating the small wins look like to you now? Why were you not celebrating them before?
I think it just came down to my schedule, like how busy I was. So I'd jump from opening a pop-up to launching homeware with Liberty, to then launching in Harrods, to then launching again in Selfridges. And those 4 big events were in the space of 3 months. So yes, I posted about it on Instagram. Oh, look at my shop, look at my homeware. But I think I didn't actually stop and think, wow, like you've designed and made and created this collection with Liberty, and you're just saying, oh, look at it, but you haven't thought about how much of a achievement that is. And I'm not talking about bragging about it, but I'm just talking about like just stop and actually like celebrate it and to like take it all in. And I don't think at that time I had the headspace to enjoy it as much as I should have, whereas now I'm enjoying things like I've just collaborated with a sustainable fabric company, and I'm seeing the positive effects from people's comments, from people appreciating how I'm making these changes within myself and within the brand. And, getting a feature in a magazine, like I used to have those monthly, but they just became irrelevant to me. Whereas now I'm like, wow, you should stop and like appreciate things that have been achieved, because they may have become so frequent that you forget how much it takes to accomplish something like that.
Exactly as you say, things can become normalized to you based on your experience, and actually taking a moment to realize, wow, somebody took the time to write something about me and my brand. That's really special.
It doesn't even have to be something like that. It could be, I spent a lot more time and effort creating a design and watching it from design to sample to final production, and seeing it all the way through. Whereas back then, the team was so big, I wasn't as involved in things. I obviously had sign off and came up with the design ideas and was present, but I wasn't as involved in that design process as I am now.
Yeah, there's a richness in the fact that you feel more attached to the outcome because you were more involved in the creation. Continuing with the thread of socials and the fact that you share, obviously very personally, on your own brand Instagram, you said, I wanted to share my experiences, almost the opposite of a glow up, a message to so many small business owners, mothers especially, that it's okay to downsize, change your mind, start over. Sometimes things don't go to plan, economic crises happen, priorities change, and what used to make you happy doesn't anymore. There's a quote I love by Ursula K. Le Guin, I hope I pronounced that right, which is, "We are volcanoes. When we women offer our experiences as our truth, as human truth, all the maps change. There are new mountains." And I think the point is that you're not intentionally trying to create a new mountain. Why is it important for women to share their stories?
I was having this internal turmoil about whether I should share personal things on my branded Instagram page and ask people what they thought. And some people are like, oh, you should start a personal page. I took it all in and I read people's feedback. And then I actually thought, you know what? I don't know where the boundaries lie between me and the brand, because I am the brand is me. It's part of me. It's more than just other like high street brands or even other designer brands that have so many people working in their companies. It's such an intrinsic part of me. And going back to what I said about the clothes having this emotional connection, I feel like they are very reflective of my mood and where I am in my life. So it felt like a natural thing for me to share what I was thinking. And I know that it's really tough out there for small businesses at the moment. So I thought it could potentially help other, not only women, but small business owners who may be like struggling to know which direction to go in. And also just to be honest and authentic to what I was feeling. Like social media is such a load of like rubbish sometimes, in the fact that what people post isn't reality. And I'm trying to also change that in how I use socials.
I definitely agree. I see the engagement on these kinds of posts doing so well. And I'm so glad, because my 20s were very much filled with the girl boss hustle culture era. And to see that ebb and see women sharing their real stories, I wish these had been available for me to hear in my early 20s when I started out in entrepreneurship. Do you think women sometimes need to feel that they're being given permission by other similar women to slow down?
I think probably subconsciously, yes. I definitely think that connections can be made through authenticity. And as much as I share new designs and I'm proud of them and I want to show people creatively what I've created, I also want to show the truth of a situation. And I'm not going to be posting saying I've sold out of hundreds of things and I'm traveling here and I'm traveling there, when really the reality of it is I'm not trying to do that. So I was just being honest. I wasn't trying to like break boundaries or go against the grain. I was just posting what I was actually thinking. And it was becoming, yeah, I guess because I've obviously got a lovely, great supportive team, both at work and at home. But I think sometimes you can feel alienated in your thoughts. So I just that was my way of expressing them. And I honestly didn't expect it to get the reaction that it did.
I think that's the thing with vulnerability and truth is you're going from a place where you're not expecting a huge response. There's nothing tied to that response. And so to give from a place of purity, you receive from the same place, and it creates for such a wonderful transaction. Well, thank you for sharing, allowing me to deep dive into that kind of section of your Instagram posts.
No worries.
I wanted to ask how you slow down in the micro of your day-to-day. Are there any tools that you use to help you cope more with the day-to-day stresses?
I think it's all part of the process in learning to prioritize what's important. So for me at the moment, I'd say like my eldest daughters, like both of my daughters are important, but she's doing exams. So it's very important to me that I'm not rushing around doing lots of work-based things, that I have the time to, like, for example, this week I've cleared my schedule so that I can pick her up from school every day, because that makes a difference to her. Whereas normally on a day-to-day basis, I drop them at school, but I never pick them up. So I wanted to make that change this week. And I think it's also learning to say no to all opportunities that come my way. Previously, I feel like I would say yes to everything, even if it wasn't necessarily an exciting project to me or something that meant a lot to me. But now my decisions are based a lot more kind of emotionally, and I have to be more careful with what I say yes to and commit my time to, because time is so precious, whether it's like a business collaboration or like an invitation to be on a podcast. I just choose what I do more carefully, that it's aligns with my values. Whereas before, maybe other people would make the decision for me. Like if I had, when I had a press team, or if I had a sales agent, they would make more decisions on my behalf. Whereas now, being smaller and slower, I can really evaluate what deserves that time.
What is your working definition of the word success now?
I would say success to me at the moment is having a happy balance between work and life. And success to me also means having ambition, because I think there is maybe an unintentional view that when you slow down and you become smaller, that maybe your ambition wanes a bit. But for me, I feel just as ambitious as I did before, but I'm just directing that ambition in a different way. So next year I have an idea to create a diffusion line I get a lot on Instagram, oh, your things are very expensive and I wish I could afford them. And I don't deny the prices of my collections, because a lot of work goes into them and they are the price they are for a reason. But I would like to reach more people with my designs, and I feel like the color and the positivity that radiates through them if I could reach more people, I think it would have a positive effect. So I'm trying to work out ways which I can do that.
Well, I'm excited for if that happens. What advice would you give to somebody in their early 20s looking to start a brand now and get into being a designer and entrepreneurship in fashion?
I get asked this question. I think that's my most asked question, of how you would start a brand. And it's a tough one, because it's the world, life is not the same as it was when I started, like in 2018. Like fashion industries, retail was much, much harder in my opinion. But there's kind of four main rules that I would stick to. One, originality and being unique. So that's key to what I do. I don't follow trends. I created or try to create things that no one else does. So I'd say, especially in such a saturated market, originality is key. Two, I would say do not invest a lot of money initially when starting a brand. When I started, I set up a pre-order system. So everything that was being pre-ordered, I would then use that money to invest in new stock and new ideas. I would say experience is key. So a lot of people want to start brands and businesses without having experienced it themselves. And as you know, having experience, internships, even though they're not, some of them aren't that fun, some of them you realize you don't want to be like that or work for a company like that. It makes you evaluate that, and you get a better understanding of what you want your business to be like. And three, I'd say commitment, because I think there's a lot of naivety when starting a brand and a business that you can hire everyone to do things for you, but essentially you'll never stop thinking about your own brand or your own business. Similarly to a child, like it's on your mind all the time. It's part of you. So you have to be able to commit time really to it. So I'd say those four things.
It's good advice.
With the last one being kind of quite paramount, because I see a lot of people like in a blasé way saying, oh, I want to start a brand, I want to start a business. And I think, do you know how much time you have to commit?
I also think that people don't understand, you know, as you said, you revived the brand 2017-18, but you have a 20-year backstory of, you know, knowing how to do all of these things and learning and having that experience. So I think a lot of people look from the outside and think, oh, that happened for that person very quickly. But that's actually not what's really been going on.
No, exactly.
I have a sort of final question, which is, if I had to watch a film, listen to a piece of music, view a piece of art, read one particular book that would help me understand more about you, what would it be?
Oh, that is a hard one. I would probably say to watch like an early Miuccia Prada fashion show. I've always been a huge fan of how she's built her brand and her business. And way back when she started, she was one of the first female designers that I really looked up to. And not only design-wise, because everything she does is unique. You never see anyone else. She never copies. She never rehashes like other designers' ideas. It's always her own. But I like the way she conducts herself as well. So I would direct you to an early 90s fashion show of Prada or early Miu Miu.
I love that. That sounds like a great little YouTube deep dive that I can definitely get into. Are there any responses to your posts of comments that you've had in your DMs from women that have really moved you?
I always make sure to respond to DMs and posts as much as possible. But on my last post with the kind of selfies of my exterior reflecting my interior feelings, I was just so overwhelmed by people's replies. I honestly didn't expect it. So I'm still digesting that, even though that was a week ago. But again, it just comes back to the not having to post every day, not having to be immediate with my responses. I'm always quite shocked by it because I don't have expectations really of people anymore. Not in a negative way, but just in a realistic way, because I know everyone's really busy. Everyone's got their own things going on. So when anyone comments on something like that, I am really appreciative of it. And if I can help in any way, I definitely will. Back in 2014 postpartum anxiety, depression wasn't talked about at all. I didn't know I had it. I didn't know what it was. I just didn't feel like myself. And if I'd had people that I looked up to or I followed posting about it, I think I would have felt a lot calmer within myself, and I wouldn't have worried so much knowing that someone else is experiencing what you are. And I've had a lot of people postpartum, like up to 2 or 3 years postpartum, saying they still don't feel like themselves. They're dressing in ways that they would never have before. Like mentally, they're not feeling like they used to. And just, I think that allows just telling them that they've got the time and the grace to give themselves to get back to what they were before. There's a society's pressure of rushing back to work and maternity leave, and are you coming back? Are you not? And I think that has negative connotations on women who are postpartum, and especially who are having these darker thoughts. So just reminding them that there's no timeline on it, that these feelings are genuine, like they are okay to be feeling them, and just give yourself time.
You also talk a lot about how the clothes that you wear, obviously they're very rainbow, very colorful. They provide a certain amount of joy for you. At what point did you start to associate clothing with joy?
I don't think it actually was intentional, because my final press show and all the work I did at Central St. Martin's was colourful, surface design, textiles. So then I was dressing colourfully. And even as a child, like photos that my mum shows me, I've got like rainbow hats in and pastel coloured smock dresses that I loved. So I think it was in that postpartum period time of like 2-ish years that I just wanted to blend in, essentially. I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to do anything to draw attention to myself. So when I started making my own clothes again in 2016, that was the gradual reemergence of me again. A different me, because I had a 1-year-old and I'd been through these feelings, but it made me feel like me again when you put an outfit on and you just feel like yourself, that kind of feeling. So I think that automatically came out in what I was designing and has become a signature and what I'm known for, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, what's more positive than a rainbow? I definitely have this feeling of during COVID, I just had an urge to wear a lot of color. It was such a dark, heavy, difficult time, and I wanted to be comfortable, so it's a lot of very colorful like tracksuits. But I just had this feeling that I didn't want to wear black, and I really wanted to wear color. And since then, I just continued, and I wear a lot of color, and it really resonates with me. I also wear it because I think it brings a lot of joy to other people in unusual circumstances. I went to the nightclub Fabric a couple of years ago, and I wore head to toe hot pink jeans, hot pink top, hot pink shoes, and a really, really colorful pink bucket hat. And most people in Fabric are wearing black. But the amount of people that either came up to me and would just said like, wow, I love what you're wearing, or they just looked at me and smiled at 3 a.m. And I think just that level of kind of bringing joy to other people is so thrilling and fun. And you're reminded that it's not about you and what do people think of you, and will I look bad in this, or will somebody think that I'm trying too hard or anything. No, you're wearing something to bring joy to both yourself and others. I found to be such a liberating idea.
I get that a lot as well, and I think it's also just giving people the confidence to try wearing color as well is what I'm trying to do more so now. We still obviously have our rainbow sequins made from sustainable sequins, which is all recycled polyester. We have those bright, bold, really unique pieces, but I'm trying to also make colorful pieces for people that can start wearing color and experiment with it more. And I always get like the most wonderful DMs from people saying, I wore your skirt for the first time and this person came up to me at a shop and it made me feel so good about myself. And that's really what it's about. It's about people just giving it a go, I think.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for giving a go on this podcast and allowing me to have so much of your time. I really appreciate it. And it's been so wonderful to speak to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. This episode was hosted and created by me, Tiana Tambridge. It was produced by Whitney Rosenthal. Sound and video recording, mixing, editing, and mastering is by Brazen Studios. Cover art designed by Natalia Ruche. Please subscribe to The Slowdown to be notified of upcoming episodes, tell a friend, and leave a review, because it really helps a new podcast like this get out there into the world. And remember, we're all heading to the same destination, and there is no prize for getting there early, so we might as well slow down.